Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody. It's time for another one of our it's Wednesday night Under the Radar podcasts.
Under the
I'm your
radar.
host, Chad Sherwood. Joined on my side here by the puppet David Griggs. Down below from
Woo-hoo.
Bracketeer.org, we have Rocco Miller or Bracket Miller, depending on what you want to call
Bracket
him.
Miller.
but
Yeah.
this is our Under the Radar podcast, and for those of you who have never seen the show before, which
Why
there's
haven't
probably
you?
like one of you, maybe one of you is watching us. But Grace, why don't you tell everyone what Under the Radar means?
In short, it is the 22 regular one bid leagues, and we always got to say that there's no rule that says they are one bid leagues. There's a few of them this year that will probably get more than one bid, but typically they're only getting one bid. That is certainly not the Power Five, which is the Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, SEC, and ACC, nor is it the other five leagues that typically send multiple teams, which is the Big East, the Atlantic 10, the Mountain West, the West Coast, and the American. Hey, I got them all. It's
Yeah,
the other 22.
there's the
Uh,
one of the disqualifiers. If a team is ranked in the top 25 of either of the major two major polls, we don't
yes.
consider them under the radar. Last week, Loyola Chicago was not under the radar. Guess what, Loyola? You lost.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Back under the
Loyola
radar. And
Loyola
it
Chicago
has,
once again.
yeah, it has been a busy day. We had UCLA, Arizona, big top 10 matchup, a lot of good games last night and the night. We're not talking about hardly any of those, though.
There's a major coaching news out of Louisville. That's not even under the radar.
Right. Yeah.
Chris Beard out at Louisville, not under the radar. So we're
Well,
not going to
Chris Beard,
mention
yes, not the coach at Louisville,
Chris
but he
back
wasn't
out
the
of
coach. Yeah.
Chris back out of Louisville. Chris Beard is the coach that Louisville wants, but that's again a
Yeah.
different story. Uh,
Right.
I'm
And I
doing this
want to be
again.
in Jeff Bezos as well.
Uh, what I like to do with these shows, though, is start each week off with a feature conference, and I we actually had a heck of a night already tonight in this conference, and I thought this would be a great place to start. Actually, I'd not been our feature conference yet this season. I figured let's start things off in the Big South Conference tonight.
Ooh,
Uh,
yeah.
Fresh off of both Winthrop and Longwood, the two division leaders uh, getting comeback victories tonight. Winthrop at Upstate, Longwood over North Carolina A&T. Rocco, let me start with you in this league. How about seeing Longwood as undefeated in the conference and the only remaining undefeated team
Wow.
in this conference?
Wow.
They're playing good basketball. That's all you can really say. I mean, you go back to the start of December, they've only lost one time, and that includes a handful of non-conference wins. Nothing really notable there. A couple of MEAC schools and a tough loss at Abilene Christian. But since league play got started, Longwood's really asserted themselves. Started with an OT win at Radford, and then they built on that with a couple home wins, and now have parlayed a couple road wins at Presbyterian and Hampton, and then hosted A&T tonight, which is probably one of the teams they'll have to contend with throughout the year. So that's a big win again today for the Lancers. It's a team that they've got a good amount of experience. They start three seniors, two sophomores, good mix. Their sixth man is also a senior. So, Griff Aldrich, a really good coach. He's been trying to build this program for a few years now. It looks like this could be his year.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, this is a team that Griggs, that we just perennially just put at the bottom of the conference and move on. And really,
Yeah.
I'm starting to join this Longwood join in on this here. And
Well,
on the other side,
yeah.
we do have the perennial power in the South Division, the Winthrop. That's sitting at 6-1, 3 wins this past week.
Yeah, a big week for them, playing some makeup games. But yeah, how can you not be excited about Longwood? It's one of the bigger under the radar stories for the same reason you said. It's just a team with no real history, haven't been Division One for very long. I mean, long enough, I suppose, but best year ever as a D1 program. Is it even debatable? Have they even ever won as many games as they've already won throughout a full season? I don't think they have.
I'll tell you, the other reason I wanted this conference to be our feature conference is we have coming up on Saturday. It is
Oh,
not only a battle of two first place teams, the only time they meet all season, the regular season, but it is also one of our favorite rivalries here at Hoops HD.
yes.
This is the biggest, most important in history, quite honestly, the
Yes.
most important Winwood Cup of all time.
The Winwood. Yes, the Winwood Cup, like one of the bigger
Wow.
trophy series. We've got, I mean, there's the River Vine. There's lots of them. There's the Cornmouth in the Ivy League between Dartmouth and Cornell, but the Winwood Cup. I hope Stalika's watching what this has become.
This is a major, major trophy that will be awarded, and first
Yeah.
place going forward in the conference, and the inside track to the #1 overall seed in the conference tournament as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Saturday's winner. So I'll be watching the game. I hope you all will as well. Longwood after that is going to be at Asheville. Winthrop does not have a second game this coming week. That's their only game of the week, from what I'm seeing on the screen there, at least.
That's all you need.
That's all you need. But let's get serious here. Go back to the rest of the conferences and start at the America East, where Rocco, Vermont is just rolling at this point. I think a huge, huge win again by blowout fashion, again over Stony Brook tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Vermont's another team that's only lost once since the start of December. Been blowing teams out in the America East. Their closest game has been 10 points, so they haven't even had a single-digit game yet in league. Yeah, I mean, Stony Brook was a team that we kind of mocked a little bit for being picked first, and Vermont's already got the season sweep over them. So I guess that challenge is out of the way now. In terms of another contender, I mean, how in the heck is Binghamton sitting at 5-2? That's like a mini miracle for that program.
But they actually lost to Hartford tonight, so now 5-3.
To Hartford,
right, 5-3.
Yeah,
and a bad Hartford team too. So,
well, Hartford team coming off a long pause. I think it's like their second or third game back, so we're still not sure what we're going to get out of Hartford in the league. But this Binghamton team just beat them on Monday, so it was one of those, back to back, play twice in 3 days on each other's home court. Not a fun situation because you get all the adjustments, but Binghamton to have 5 league wins. I mean, they beat NJIT on the road. They beat Albany on the road. This is like uncharted waters for anything recent Binghamton.
Yeah, not since they made the NCAA tournament and then had a little bit of a scandal there, a little bit.
A little bit.
Griggs, the upcoming schedule here for I mean, I think the only games worth circling in Vermont to see if they get upset, and they're home. They got a pair of home games against
sort of
three home games against Maine, Albany, NJIT. At this point, but I don't know that there is any game that they're not overwhelmingly favored to win the rest of the way. This
yeah, I agree. It wouldn't. I'm actually kind of expecting them to run the table all the way through to the conference championship game. I mean, and one of the questions is, how, like, are they good enough to win a game in the round of 64 if they get there? I don't think they can get inside the bubble. There just isn't enough here to get them there, even if they run the table. But I think they're definitely good enough to do that. And what do you put them? 12 line, 13 line? How dangerous are they?
I don't know. The 12 line might be out of the reach. That is probably above the cut line but I think the 13 line is definitely there. But Briggs, let me stick with you over to the Ace Sun. This was our feature conference last week, and now here we are with Kennesaw did suffer a loss to Lipscomb.
Kind of
Bellarmine.
surprising.
Sorry, Jacksonville State beat Bellarmine in that big first place battle we had there. But we do have now Liberty and Jack State as the 2 undefeated teams remaining.
Yeah, and I think Liberty is kind of the class of the league, and they're finally starting to flex their muscles a little bit and show it.
If they can get,
Kennesaw, Jack State I mean, they've been good stories, but I don't think that they're going to be there at the end. I think Liberty kind of stands alone here.
Right, and that it was kind of disappointing that Liberty Kennesaw State game that I was circling got canceled. With Liberty, Rocco, I believe Liberty's scheduled to be back on the court tomorrow night. Hopefully they're playing. This little mini pause they had, I think.
Yeah, I think they had 9 players at practice yesterday. I read,
okay,
so
great.
They got enough players to get through, and it's North Alabama, so it's a nice tune-up. And then Saturday is a huge one when they host Jacksonville State up there in Lynchburg. So.
Yeah, that is, if you're not going to be watching the Winwood Cup, I'd be watching the Jack State Liberty game on Saturday in this conference.
But you want to be watching the Winwood Cup. I mean, that's
get a couple screens going, definitely.
Yeah.
Big Sky Conference.
I was just going to mention,
Go
I
ahead.
don't know if you guys could hear that there, but
Yeah, we could. It was-
Somebody's
Well,
dog is barking.
yeah. I think we have a Kennesaw State dog out there. 'Cause
Yeah.
it wanted me to mention the fact that Liberty's gonna, with all these rescheduled games, they'll have that big one with Jacksonville State at home, but they got to turn around and play Monday at Kennesaw in the makeup game. So I think that's a tricky 2-game stretch there in 3 days with some travel mixed in. Watch out for that with Liberty.
Yeah, there it is. I actually did make the screen there. Liberty at Kennesaw. Thanks for catching that. Rocco, let me stick with you though with the Big Sky Conference out west
Yeah.
there, where Weber State is another team that started to flex some muscle. What they did Monday night, going to Southern Utah in a huge, what I was looking at as a first place showdown and getting the 8-point road win. I was very impressed.
Very impressed. It was, I think, pretty much a sold out crowd down there in Cedar City.
Oh, it was a
And
Beehive game. Of course, it was
It-
sold out.
yes, a very,
Yeah.
very rowdy crowd. Kobe McEwen, the transfer from Marquette, actually on the way out after the win, blew a kiss to the students. So it was a pretty, it was a heated game. If you missed any of it, go back and check out the highlights. High scoring too, 92-84, great pace to it. This Weber State team is full of great veterans, and then the freshman Dylan Jones is easily the best freshman in the Big Sky. He's having just a tremendous year. I fear that a bigger school might poach him next year, but just enjoying seeing somebody that talented play in the Big Sky.
Tied with him in the loss column, though, Griggs, is Northern Colorado, who, in another one of our favorite rivalries on Saturday, won the Nokoiwu Cup on the road by 4 points.
Yeah. And again, when you have another big trophy game like that and you're able to win it, it just kind of gives you all kinds of confidence and momentum. I still like Weber. You know, they had that one stretch where they lost 4 straight games, and I think that we were bigger on them than what they were, and like we were kind of disappointed that they didn't manage to win at least one of those. But outside of those 4, they've only lost one other one, and you know, I'm starting to like them better than everyone else in the
Well,
I mean, I have liked them all year long, but I think that they're almost becoming more and more definitively the best team.
Yet another huge road test for them to come up tomorrow night. They are at Northern Colorado, so
Yeah.
this will clearly determine who's in first place in the conference. I think games in Montana State may be more difficult than Northern Colorado at the end of the day, but as for right now, it is a first place showdown, so
Yeah.
definitely worth circling. Griggs, let me stick with you. Stick out west in the Big West Conference, where we have, if you told me that we were going to have 2 teams at 5-0 here in the late January, I would
These
have
would
said
not have been the 2.
I would have said absolutely we're going to have it. It's going to be UC Irvine and UC Santa Barbara like every year. Maybe I would have said even Riverside. No, Hawaii and Fullerton. I'll give Rocco credit. You've been on this Fullerton bandwagon, but
Rocco has, and you do have to give him credit. This league to me looks upside down. Beach, they have kind of a history, but they haven't been good recently yet. Here they are at 4-1. But look at the look at the top 4 teams. It's Fullerton, Hawaii, Riverside, Beach. And look at and toward the bottom, you have Santa Barbara, Irvine, and like the teams that you're used to seeing at the top. This league is entirely upside down.
yeah, Rocco. I guess we got to take Hawaii pretty seriously at this point too. Also, I mean, they won at Bakersfield, they won at Cal Poly, a pair of road wins this past week.
Yeah, I mean, they've been a changed team ever since they got Bernardo da Silva back. He missed the entire Diamond Head Classic where they lost the 2 games that they played in. Unfortunately, they lost to South Florida and Vandy. But right when Big West play came, he was ready to come back. And we hadn't heard from him since the Rainbow Classic. So it was a big layoff. He had 6 games he missed, almost all their losses too. And he's just been a huge presence in the paint. He lets the rest of the team free up. They've been flowing really well in terms of their pace and rhythm. So Hawaii's been really fun to watch. I mean, I was blown away when they flew out Irvine a couple weeks ago. And I think just from there, the confidence has been there. You know, you look at the results since then, it's 2 blowout wins over UC San Diego and Cal Poly, a nice road win at Bakersfield, which is a tough place to win. So, I mean, Hawaii is an interesting, dangerous team right now.
Yeah, there's 2 types of stories here, Rocco, and I know that you're a little more immersed in this league than I am, but as great as Fullerton and Hawaii and Riverside, and you've been banging at least the drum for Fullerton and Riverside, all year long. The other story is just how bad Santa Barbara and the Eaters have been. What the hell happened?
Well, yeah, I don't know about the Eaters part. They, losing to Fullerton was a really good game, lost at the end. Same with the Beach game. Now, remember when Beach and Irvine play, it's the
Yeah, the
black
and blue game. Yeah, it is.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But Beach is just they're playing out of their heads. I can't believe they're 3-1. And one other thing, just for the standings for future reference, UC San Diego games, for whatever reason, the Big West policy is they don't count towards the standings. So we'll have to make some tweaks there. But yeah,
Okay,
so
they don't count for the conference tournament standings either. That's always that's
yeah,
up in the air. I'll get to what the WAC is doing towards the end of the show with that, but which is even more confusing. But okay, but we'll make that update. We'll get those San Diego games off of the schedule if they are not counting towards conference standings, even for the tournament.
yeah, I had to look it up recently. It threw me off. It's like the only league that does it. So, but anyway, yeah, it's kind of nice to see a lot of these programs who have been down for a while really have some hope right now, and just some good competition. A lot of transfers, a lot of teams that took a couple months to come together. So it's going to be pretty unpredictable from here. I do expect Irvine to figure it out at some point, but man, I really am not sold on Santa Barbara. I think it's going to be a real down year for them.
Well, yeah, I was very sold coming into the year, like back in October, and then the season started. It's hard to stay sold on them.
Yeah.
I guess they lost one player for the season, but still to be
Right.
sitting here at Zach Harvey for the season, but sitting here at 1-3, 8-7, you got to be better than that. You got to more depth
Yeah.
than that. The
Exactly.
upcoming games. I look at Fullerton here at UC Davis. UC Davis only played 3 Big West games, but they don't only have one loss, so they're definitely not out of the race. That's the big game tomorrow night, and then Fullerton at Riverside on Saturday. Those are the
That's a
two
big
games we'll
one.
circle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. That Fullerton Riverside game. And who'd have thought other than Rocco, who'd have thought we'd be saying that right now?
Fullerton Riverside. That's the game of the season here in the Big
Yeah.
West. I mean, it might be. Oh, well,
Right.
maybe we'll get Fullerton Hawaii, but that's
Yeah.
still a couple weeks away. Speaking of surprising teams, Rocco,
Yeah.
did you have UNC Wilmington winning the Colonial this season?
I didn't. I didn't. It's been incredible what they've done. And you look at the 4 games in a row on the road. I mean, they won at Charleston, JMU, Towson, and Northeastern. I mean, these
The
were
4
like
top teams in the conference. They on the road, 4
they did it
straight.
all on the road. Yeah, I mean, it's improbable, so improbable. But they're getting just tremendously clutch possessions late in games and pulling these things out, and they're playing at such a high level with Jalen Sims and the young coach Takeo Siddle. It's only his second year, I believe. Man, he's got these guys playing amazing. 9 wins in a row overall. They're a whole different team than the team that showed up at the what was it called, the Zoo Classic up in Missoula, where they got killed by Southern Miss. It's this is one of the best stories out there right now.
Um.
Go ahead, Griggs.
Oh, okay. Well, there is something that I have to mention, just because it's something I never ever thought we'd see. It's the inverse of a good type of surprise. Northeastern 0-8 in
Yeah.
this conference.
We talked about it last week at 0-6.
College
Never
of
happened
Charleston
before.
2 of 4. What in the hell is in the water? Like the Colonial, the Big West. What is going on this year?
I'll tell you what. Tomorrow night, Northeastern at UNC Wilmington.
Again,
I would not be shocked to see the upset though either, because
No.
going into the season, I would have said Northeastern would be favored in that game. So you never know.
Yeah, back-to-back games too. They just played on Monday in Boston. So
Right.
now,
Yeah.
now going back down to Wilmington, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean the margins are so slim on these games, guys. So it's like you just got to find guys that make plays in the clutch and make their free throws, and it makes all the difference in the world in a league like this.
William and Mary 3 and 4, 3 games ahead of Northeastern. That is just utterly preposterous.
It really
A
is.
team I wanted to mention, and I do because I think that they have the highest ceiling, albeit it's the ceiling and not where they normally are. I still think Hofstra is capable of really like messing some stuff up if they can get to the round of 64.
Yes.
Hofstra has the key week here at Charleston, then at
Yeah.
Wilmington this week. So this is their chance to turn things around right now.
Yeah.
They go
Yeah,
0-2 these two, they're in
Hofstra,
trouble.
Yeah.
they've got
Yeah.
some big time players, and I think Towson does too, actually.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I
Towson's a
was.
top 90 team in Ken Palm right now. That looks like they're 87 currently.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
89 heading into the day. That must be the latest updated estimate. 87.
Yeah.
Top 100 across the board of the metrics. The only team that's got that. Uh, let's jump over to Conference USA, uh, where Griggs,
Oh,
just like as with last week, I'm ignoring that East Division and talking about the West. And how about I think it's how about UAB and what they did over the weekend, going to La Tech and getting the huge win.
yeah. UAB is starting to have earmarks of an at-large caliber team, a top 40 net. Yeah, I know you're pulling them up.
Yep.
You know, a first place team, albeit not outright, but in first place, a top 40 net when it populates. You know, on the road, only 3 road wins, but my God, what a group of 3 to have at North Texas, at St. Louis, at La Tech. They're the only wart on this resume, and I would hate to think that something like this would make the difference between them being inside the bubble or not in the event that they don't win the conference tournament. That loss to Rice hurts, and it hurts UAB in a way that it probably doesn't hurt teams that don't play in under the radar conferences, because it is very, very, very hard to offset. But look at this. I mean, this is just, do they, well, Rocco, he's a selection committee guessing expert, one of the many we have here at Oops HD. Can UAB, this is, I think, the second or third time I've gone to Rocco when you've gone to me, Chad, but can UAB get inside the bubble?
Definitely. I mean, I have them inside the bubble right now. I would have
Really?
them,
Oh, that's, wow.
I,
Okay.
I would have them in the first 4. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that because of the way a lot of the power leagues. There's so many teams with poor schedule rankings, but it just happens to be the teams near the bubble today. If some of that starts to shift, if teams like Michigan get better, a lot of that gets out of UAB's control. But I will say this: like UAB is so impressive that a team from a power conference, which is West Virginia, their best win right now is easily at UAB. So
Yeah.
that speaks volumes that a team like West Virginia, who's played in the Charleston Classic, who plays in the Big 12 3 games a week, still to this day, almost the end of January, their best win is at UAB, and they're a tournament team. That, I mean, that alone I think says a lot.
It didn't beat them by much. I mean, if you
No,
watch
I mean
it,
UAB, yeah, gave that game away. By the way,
I
they should have won that.
I got to say I kind of agree with David that where you started with. Right now, that Rice loss is that, if you win that Rice game,
Mhm.
I'm saying let's throw them on the 11 line. Let's throw them above the first 4. Um,
Yeah,
but and I mean they'd be the auto bid winner also. But they don't have an easy. They've got to play Louisiana Tech again, and they've got to play North Texas again, both at home. And I put North Texas up there on the right because this is a team that's now won 5 in a row. Got a huge test coming up at La Tech this weekend, and if they can get that win, they're going to establish themselves as the second best team in the conference easily.
most
definitely.
likely. This is a rough week. Like, I know Western Kentucky it has not been impressive. It's still hard to go there and win, and it's still hard to go to Marshall. And the reason, just getting back to UAB here, those are sort of like, trap games in the worst way, because if you get stuck in that quicksand, you're not getting back out of it. It's hard to win. It's games that are not easy to win against teams that anchor down your profile. Anyway,
Absolutely. And here's the upcoming schedule. We mentioned the big ones: UAB at Western Kentucky, and the North Texas game on
Lots of
Saturday at Louisiana Tech. Thank you. Uh, by the way, there is another division here. It's a complete mess. Other than Marshall stinking, everybody else is probably still in that race. They do seed the conference tournament though by division. So one thing is that one of these 3 teams between UAB, La Tech, and North Texas is going to have to win 4 games in 4 days to win the conference tournament, and that's why
well,
you've got to finish in the top 2 at least.
technically,
well,
practically, if you're
Unless,
playing this,
except Rocco's got
last
some
year.
news for us.
Well,
Go
last
ahead.
year North Texas did it. They went
Yep.
4 in 4 days.
Okay.
and
You
then
you
they
are
beat
right.
Purdue.
But
It is.
that's one of the only kinds of teams that can do it. Like one of the reasons I thought UAB fell against Rice is they play at such an explosive pace and style that I think when in the Thursday Saturday setup that they usually, like, just it's early, but I want to track this. In the Saturday game, they tend to lose some steam. And that's exactly what happened in that Rice game. And then another one just last weekend or the weekend before, the Saturday game, they were a lot closer and pulled it out, but it was a different UAB team. So I think in the tournament setting, it could be similar, and that might be work against them.
Okay, I just lost the screen. I apologize. UAB. Let's see UAB at Western Kentucky. Let's see what if they win that game. What they do at Marshall on Saturday.
Yeah.
That could be worth watching.
Can't lose that. Yeah, they're 0-6.
But I did jump over all the way to the Horizon League already, and Rocco, we've got. I don't. I'm still trying to figure out what happened last Thursday night when Milwaukee. And no, it was not. It's not like Baldwin was back from Milwaukee. He was still out, and they
Right.
beat Oakland by 10 points. I just can't figure that one out.
Yeah, I mean that was very surprising. I know Oakland had a very thin team that day. They had a starter go down in the first couple of minutes, but
This is a bad Milwaukee team. I think even
Yeah.
with Baldwin, it's a bad Milwaukee team. Honestly,
This is a bad conference this year. My goodness.
yeah, you're right. You're right. No, I can't figure it out either. I think it's tough. You're playing in a league where you're required to play 22 league games this year. Nobody else is dealing with that. And you're going to see everybody twice. That happened to be the second time Milwaukee saw them for whatever that's worth. It didn't have to be Milwaukee, but you'd figure somewhere along the line with that many league games and the various weird trips they do basically all by bus from all the way from Green Bay out to Fort Wayne or whatever it is, or Youngstown. It's a league where you're probably not going to get Oakland's best performance every night, and certainly didn't that night. But I don't know how else to explain it than that.
but look what Milwaukee then, after beating Oakland at home, gets Detroit Mercy in at home and gets blown out.
They went back to themselves.
Yeah, yeah, the other news out of this conference, I think it was announced officially today, UIC on
Yeah.
the way out of the Horizon, heading to the Missouri Valley next season.
Oh, that was just no.
Well,
Yeah, okay,
it was
yeah,
it was the
official.
press conference, the official
Okay.
press conference. Yes.
So that takes it down to 11. It is being. I'll just go ahead and speculate that they're going to look to get back to 12, which they do not need to do. For years, this was a 9-team league. It was good as a 9-team league. It was good as a 10-team league. They don't need 12 teams, but whatever.
Here's the upcoming schedule. I highlighted IUPUI at Oakland because that game is gone already. That game has been canceled tomorrow night, but we're getting very few cancellations, thankfully, these days. So,
Yes.
and I believe they're declaring that a no contest. So I don't know if there's any intent to make that up. So
Well,
maybe
it
Oakland will
wouldn't
throw
have
more
been a
games short.
contest anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Basically, be an exhibition game, right?
Yeah.
let's David, Ivy League.
Ivy.
Where it's only other than Yale got a couple games in, including a surprising
Yeah.
loss to Penn over the weekend, but Princeton won game, but they won it at Dartmouth.
And it was close. I thought they'd go to Dartmouth and just kind of blow their doors off. They got the win. It's never easy to win on the road, but they had to sweat. And I still think Princeton's the only team that could go to the round of 64 against a team that's like a protected seed and make a halfway decent account of itself. I don't think they'd win the game, but nobody else in this league, based on what I've seen, has any chance of doing that. But they did struggle to beat Dartmouth. Good God.
But they got the win. They are 5-0. Again, only one game this week in this conference. Princeton hosting Yale, though, in a huge one, Rocco.
It is. Yeah. I mean, Yale was probably most people's favorite coming into the year just based on recent history. But this Princeton team's loaded offensively, not playing much defense. I think they're 290th in defense, but Yale much more. Yeah, much more balanced, this Yale team. And they're starting to find their way. They definitely struggled in the non-conference, went 6-8 in those games. Now they've got a win over Brown at Brown, which is not an easy place to get a win, especially with all the experience Brown has. Dropped a game with Penn. So yeah, I think Yale could give them a test, but it's at Princeton, so it's hard to pick Yale in that one.
You want to talk about balanced team, the 158th in both offense and defense
That's
nationally.
right.
So yes, pure balance in Yale. They do everything very mediocrely.
They do
Right in the
everything
middle.
very 158.
In Princeton, you can't find anything more extreme than Princeton. So there you go.
Yeah.
Rocco, one team that did do what they're supposed to be doing and did it pretty emphatically, I thought this week, was Iona, winning at Quinnipiac, beating Siena the other night.
That's what they need to do. I mean, this league's full of teams that want to beat them. They got a bullseye everywhere they go. So, I just think Siena is way down this year after I think they have a couple guys out, but even still, it's not a typical Siena team after Pickett went to Penn State. And, Quinnipiac, Manhattan, some of these teams, they're lower 200s. Iona wants to consider themselves still an at-large candidate. And
I think they are.
Yeah, they certainly are.
Yeah.
And they just got to mop those teams off the floor. So they're doing a good job of doing that. I think that's what historically these types of teams do. And they'll get a nice test with St. Peter's on Sunday, I think.
Yeah, I'm only showing one guy, Taylor Owens, as being out indefinitely for Siena. They got a couple other guys that are suffering injuries so right now, questionable. This questionable for the next game, but
Okay.
Rocco's kind of a metrics guy. I'm going to go to Rocco, I think, for the fourth time. Adjusted efficiency adjusted offensive efficiency for Iona, 87. That seems low because this is a good offensive team. And is it just adjusted down because they've played so many sub 200 teams or what? Like they're better than that. I mean, this is a team that didn't look bad against Alabama, who's a pretty good defensive team.
Right. No, I think I think there is some adjustment there for opponent strength. But yeah, I mean their defense. Look at the defense; they're 53rd, so that's really strong for a team in this type of league, and they do a lot of other things really well. Especially on the defensive side of the ball, and even on the offensive side, they're 7th best in the country at getting to the foul line. They're a top 65 team at offensive rebounding, so they're doing the quote unquote 4 factors very well, which is the area a lot of coaching staffs focus on. So it all equates to winning basketball games.
Yeah, it does. And the committee is supposed to be trained, and I believe that they are, if they're watching, to see through the rankings. But offensive and defensive adjusted efficiency does factor into the net, and I think it's dragging it down a little bit because when you look at the predictive,
that's true.
When you look at the merit rankings for Iona, particularly the RPI, it's really good.
Right, and that is that's one of the things when you look at these merit rankings and when you see this big difference between merit and predictive, you tend to see the net way closer to the predictives a lot because that tends to be you're right that the net does tend to be a little more predictive in that regards. The upcoming schedule, St. Peter's Iona is the big game. Unfortunately, Monmouth was a team that we were watching a lot early on. They had a couple of very disappointing losses, and I think they could still make a run in this conference, but it's going to be to probably at this point to fight for the second place team and have a chance to at least not face Iona until the Metro Atlantic Championship game. That's the battle here.
Yep.
The other MAC, the Mid-American Conference, where Griggs, we saw yet another upset here on Friday night when Ohio at home surprisingly loses to Toledo.
Lose is an understatement for what that was. Toledo went in there, and this was an Ohio U crowd that was jacked, and they should have been. They're having a great year. They had a good team. So it wasn't like Toledo snuck up on them. They just went in there and beat the crap out of them. It was more than 20 points for part of it. Ohio U actually got it down to 5. They went on a run, and it's like, well, here we go. And you think the storyline's going to be, well, what an amazing comeback from the Bobcats. Look at that. But then Toledo just shifted gears and ran away from them. Now, there just isn't enough on this resume. I don't think that it will impress the committee, which is unfortunate because this Toledo team is better than what their paper indicates.
Well, let me ask you, Rocco. If this Ohio U team wins out, which will include getting a revenge on the road in the Road Win Exchange program at Toledo coming up on February 8th, wins the rest of these games, which is not easy in the Metro Atlantic, although they've got a lot of directional Michigan schools left, which are at the bottom of the conference. Uh, is there do you think this team could be on the board still?
I think they'd have to be discussed, absolutely, because your only losses at that point would be the Toledo loss and then LSU and Kentucky, which are completely understandable losses on the road. But the problem is on the win side. The MAC is way down this year. Right now, I think it's the 19th best conference. It's shocking. I don't think I've ever. I don't remember it ever being worse than like 13th. So it's a really down year for the bottom of this league and maybe even the middle. And that's bad news for a team like Ohio trying to play for an at-large bid. I think they would only have 2 wins inside the top 100. It would be the Toledo win if they get it in the exchange program, and then the Belmont win on opening night, and that would be it unless they get another Toledo win somehow in the conference tournament. But I think if they did that, we're probably talking about the auto bid. So
Right. Yeah, and if they lose somebody other than Toledo in the conference tournament, also, it's gonna be a bad loss.
yeah, like the next highest team right now is 105 Buffalo, which maybe you lose to them, you're okay. And they got to go. They're going there on Friday, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Little
there is
segue there.
there is an upcoming schedule. Ohio at Buffalo Friday, then hosting Ball State on Tuesday. Akron and Toledo on Friday night, the other big game in this conference
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the Rockets. They're really good too.
Very good. They're playing on fire right now.
Yeah, they are. Wow.
Yeah, they don't have. I don't think they have any shot in that large, but they are going to be a very dangerous.
Dangerous.
If they are in the NCAA tournament, they're going to be a very dangerous team to beat.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
MEAC, Rocco. It's the MEAC. Norfolk State continuing to roll. I guess Howard a bit disappointed with that Coppin State loss.
Norfolk State's playing very well. They got into league play, lost their last couple non-league games after the 9-1 start, and beating Coppin and Morgan back to back is not easy to do in this league, and they got them both. So they're off to that 5-0 start, like you mentioned. NC Central is a team that had to wait around over a month to play a game after their shutdown, and got off to a good start with road wins at Delaware State and Maryland Eastern Shore.
You got to show me a little. You got to show me a little bit more that winning that winning. Those 2 games, unfortunately, but yeah.
Well, Maryland Eastern Shore is not totally dead like usual. Delaware State is, but I think overall the MEAC's on the rise. Howard showed what they can do against Notre Dame on a spotlight game. Coppin State and Morgan State are going to bring it night in and night out. And South Carolina State has been much improved this year with some of the recruits they brought in. We talked about them a few weeks ago.
One thing I'd say when we get to this conference tournament time, especially, and you can kind of once the 78 seeds are out there, you got these high tempo teams here. These are fun teams to watch.
Big time.
Yeah. I mean, they just run up and down the floor in this league.
Norfolk State this week at South Carolina State at NC Central. Could be a battle of undefeated teams if NC Central can beat Howard at home on Saturday. So we can kind of look for that. But Griggs, over in the Missouri Valley Conference, where we could talk about all 10 teams because Loyola Chicago is back following their home loss to Missouri State and then struggled to even beat Southern Illinois.
Yeah. Now, when you look at this Loyola Chicago team, if you pull up their profile here real quick, you'll notice that one of the more impressive things on it, and at least from an eye test standpoint, was how they nearly beat Michigan State. It came down to the last possession, and they were in. It'll load here in a second. And they were kind of in there against Auburn. It didn't come down to the wire the way Michigan State did, but they played really well in that game. So I don't really like the term "good loss" as much as our colleague John Titel was, but those were good losses. But when you start to look at, and then it's like those were the only 2 they had. They played really well against a good San Francisco team, got that win. But, that wasn't the first time they had played with fire, fallen down by double digits, trailed by that much in the second half, and then had to come back to win. It's just this time they got down by 20 and couldn't get all the way back. But I'd say of all the conference games they've played 6. In 4 of those 6 wins, They trailed in the second half.
And they don't have an easy schedule coming up with 4 of their next 5 on the road, including to have to go to Drake, having to go to Missouri State. And Rocco, Missouri State, I pulled them up there. They were a team we liked taking the season. Very disappointing so far. Great, they get the Loyola Chicago win. Maybe this turns things around, and then they just turn around right after that loss and give it right on back by losing at Indiana State over the weekend.
I know, yeah, it's frustrating from a standpoint of can they get back in the running for a bid with that big road win at Loyola Chicago. I think that was probably the last of the final bad losses they're going to be allowed to take. They already had 3 in the non-conference, but um, this team is so exciting to watch. Isaiah Mosley is probably easily the best under the radar player in the country this year. His last 6 games, I mean, he's gone for 43, 33, 32, 24, 40, and 25. He went for 40 in the Loyola Chicago win. He's just an unbelievably gifted offensive player. And with Gage Prim still there, I know this team, after hearing from their coaches last week, they are very determined to not stub their toe against Loyola or Drake this year. And now they've played them each once. They got both those wins. They just got to remember to stay focused for these other Valley teams.
Yeah.
You still got to play the trees.
it's
You
a
still
big-
got to play Evansville. Yeah, come on.
Right. But if you remember last year, they had a 1 week stretch where they had to play 4 games in a week, 2 against Drake, 2 against Loyola, and they lost all 4. And then they lost to Drake in the semis by 2 points. So that was like the big thing they thought about all off season. And so I think that's going to play out very interestingly when we get to Arch Madness, which there'll be a lot on the line, especially for Missouri State in Arch Madness.
There might be a lot of line for Loyola if they
Yeah,
don't find a way to play a lot better against the bottom of the valley here.
completely true.
Game at Southern Illinois coming up tomorrow night for Loyola. Home game against Illinois State. You've got to not win these games. Uh, Not only win these games, but I don't want to see them winning by 2 and by 3 and in overtime and that nonsense again. I want to see a 20-point blowout in these games, quite honestly.
Watch out for Bradley too. They're playing a lot better lately. I mean, they've definitely taken some losses here and there, but I was impressed how they took it to Drake. I think they had a big win tonight too, a big margin win. So Terry Roberts is a JUCO kid, probably the second best player in the Valley right now, which says a lot when you have guys like AJ Green and Lucas Williamson coming back in this league. So a lot of good offensive players.
Yeah, nice 71-56 win at Valpo tonight for them.
Mhm.
David, Northeast Conference time, one of our favorite leagues, where Wagner continues to do it. A pair of road wins this week.
They really are. And, Bryant is keeping pace with them, at least in the conference standings. But Wagner, when you look at what they've done all season long, has proven to be the class of the league. They continue to be. Now, every game is awesome in this league because that's just how it works. If you're not watching all 5 games every night, this team or this, every Friday and Sunday, then you're just not a college basketball fan. But Wagner, we're not used to seeing this league, that it doesn't get above the 15 line very often. I think Wagner will.
Yeah, that's I think maybe the one question here in this conference. If Wagner wins out, and they still got a few tests left, they've got a road trip to SFBK, for example, coming up this weekend. But Rocco, if they win out and win the conference tournament undefeated against NEC teams above the 15 line,
Oh yeah,
okay.
yeah, definitely. I mean, right now they're closer to a 13 than a 15 for me. And I think that goes back to beating VCU on the road. That goes to show that this team is capable of beating a top 100 team in a foreign environment. And I think when you start comparing 14, 15, 16 candidates when you're on that bottom part of the seed list, that really stands out. And so we'll see. We'll see. But you drop a Northeast Conference game here or there, they're all going to be 200, probably 250 plus. So really,
a lot about 300 plus. Yeah.
300 plus.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did you guys see the LIU game last Friday? I mean, Wagner was dead in the water. I think they're down 5. They're down 5 with like 30 seconds left, and somehow got that thing to overtime and then took over in overtime. So
Yeah,
they've had their close calls, but that's also a sign of of a strong team with a lot of character, and that's what I think this Wagner team is.
I agree with that, Rocco. Yeah, they have had some close calls, but pulled them all out. A couple overtime wins this year, I think.
Yeah, Bryant too.
Yeah.
Rocco, over in the Missouri Valley Conference, I'm sorry, Ohio Valley Conference, the upset, I guess of sorts, was after Belmont lost the Murray State game. They followed that up with the loss at Moorhead. And now we've got Moorhead sitting here undefeated with Murray at the top of the standings.
Yeah, I mean that's a tremendous win for Moorhead. The first time they had met again, after the big championship game upset last year, and Moorhead State really brought it that night and got the win. Belmont, tough 2-game stretch there. Showed they were pretty human. They shot it 33% from deep in the Moorhead game, but Moorhead shot 50% from deep, 11 for 11 for 22. So Moorhead, I was hoping that they would be a strong number 3 this year in the league, and some mixed results non-conference. They had, all their power conference opportunities. They ended up getting blown out in each of those. And I was skeptical if they could really meet the test of either Belmont or Murray. And wow, they definitely did. That was huge.
And Murray State, first of all, on the left there, uh, they have, I think, a very impressive profile at this
Yes.
moment.
Yeah.
Huge showdown with Moorhead coming up. This is going to be their home game against Moorhead this weekend. They got to go to Moorhead later on in this season.
Yeah.
Belmont, on the other hand, I still think is very close to the at-large field, but they cannot slip up anymore. Which means not only do they have to win all the garbage games at the bottom of the OVC, they got to beat Moorhead at home, and they probably have to win at Murray as well. They basically can't lose to the conference tournament again, Griggs, if they really want to be looking at an at-large bid.
Right. And I don't know if this comes into play or not, but it is sort of hard to swallow when you're talking about a team as an at-large, and they're 2 games behind a team in the conference standings, and a team that in a league that plays a balanced schedule that's probably still nowhere near the NIT. Now, I got to give Moorhead some credit. Chad kind of called it. I always said that this was a 2-horse race with 8 also rans, and Chad spoke up for Moorhead. I'm kind of rooting against Moorhead. Nothing against them. I just don't like admitting that Chad was right about it.
There's the upcoming schedule. Belmont's games are at Austin. Belmont's game Thursdays at Austin Peay. They've got UT Martin at home. They've obviously got to go 2-0. Murray State's got to win at Tennessee Tech. And then Moorhead's at SEMO, and the big game is this weekend. Moorhead at.
But committee guessing expert Rocco, is that a bad look, being 2 games behind a team that's outside the NIT for an at-large bid?
For Belmont, as of right now, I think they've got to do what Chad said. They've got to hang in, and they've win that next Moorhead game. They probably need the next Murray game, but if they don't get that, game the net, or work on your metrics by beating everybody else by 35 or more, which they've done a few times. But other than that, I think it honestly, guys, comes down to like a bunch of these other conferences. It becomes less about these little smaller mid-level teams and more about the power conference teams and just how many of them can fall off the map. If enough of them fall off the map, then Belmont starts to look pretty attractive again.
Yeah, when you're sitting there with 24, 25 wins as Belmont, it's hard to pass. But I agree with David also, though. If at the end of the day they are 2 games behind Moorhead and Moorhead's nowhere near the bubble, that may be a hard pill to swallow. But Moorhead's got to play Murray twice. They've got to play Belmont one more time. The losses are there for Moorhead to fall below Belmont.
They are.
Patriot League time, and David, we had a unbelievable game on Saturday in Annapolis. That Army Navy game. Navy was up by 387 points or something ridiculous.
When you look at the box score, it's like they changed uniforms at the half. What was it? 41-18 at the half. Navy had the lead and lost by a point.
It was a great finish. And then after that, though, Army goes and loses at Lehigh this week. Navy picks up a fairly decent road win at Bucknell. But Rocco, at the end of the day, you look at the standings, and even though they're 8-10 overall, Colgate is 4-1 in conference.
And Colgate's deadly. I mean, we've been talking about them. They ask Syracuse. I mean, they went in there and put 100 on them.
Yeah.
But the more impressive thing about the Form One is they've already got the Navy win on the road. Loyola Maryland was having a nice start to the year. They beat them by 13 the other night. And the losses to Lehigh. Lehigh has been a team that has also kind of come out of nowhere, getting some good production out of.
They have,
Playing well in league play here. This Lehigh team. So I think it's super up for grabs. Colgate is clearly a unique team with the amount of dependency they have on the 3-point line. Navy seems to be the most solid overall, but they have their weird lapses, and there's a lot of mix in between. Loyola is full of a lot of European guys, so it's it's a fun league. I like it.
I'm kind of still looking down there in the standings. I'm looking at this BU team. I think it's kind of like almost like a sleeping dog here that nobody wants. It may wake. They may be the team that wakes up and steals this whole thing at the end of the day, though.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could too.
Yeah.
They are coming off of back-to-back wins, but let's take a quick look at the upcoming schedule here. That BU team I just mentioned is hosting Colgate here on Saturday. They win that game. I think everyone might start taking notice of them in this conference here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big one.
David, in the Southern Conference, I think that the Mocs have done a pretty good job bouncing back after that crazy game at Western Carolina.
For sure. Yeah. And you hate that they have that blemish on their resume, because without it, you start to, whenever anybody's an outright first place team and in the top 50 of the net, you can't help but think that they're at least going to be on the board and discussed. And that is just, that really is like a major wart on their resume, especially when you consider that they haven't really, is that their, yeah, I was going to say they didn't.
It's loaded. There it is. They won
Yeah,
FECU.
no, they
They
did
won
have
at
the win
Wofford,
at
but they've
FECU,
got
yeah.
the 2 quad 4 losses that.
Yeah.
That
burns.
there is not.
Ooh.
I mean, only notable win you get left is at Furman, and that's going to be a quad 2 win. It's probably not
And
enough.
there just is there's way too many. Through no fault of their own, Furman's a good team. Wofford, I mean, some of those quad 3 wins are against teams that aren't bad. It's not easy to win at VMI, but it isn't to the level that it's going to pop to the committee the way that it needs to, especially. They like stuff in the top left and they hate stuff in the lower right. And right now there's just more in the lower right than in the top left when you're talking about an at-large team. Now on the court, I think that they along with Furman are probably the most capable of winning this conference tournament. And if they get to the round of 64, they can squeeze somebody.
I would quickly note here there's a score that just went final since we started recording the show. A bit of an upset here. Samford just picked up a win over Mercer this evening. So
Ooh, good for them.
Good for Samford, not so good for Mercer, who was near the top of the standings there.
Yeah.
It may be down to a 2-horse race between Nuga and Furman as we go forward.
Yeah, I think
here.
it is. Yeah.
There's the upcoming schedule. Chattanooga with a pair of road games at Citadel and Samford. Furman with a game at Mercer and then hosting Citadel coming up, if I said that correctly. But Rocco, how about the Southland Conference? Which, if you can figure it out, please tell.
Our buddy Tom.
Please explain it to me, because I can't figure this conference out for one moment.
Well, certain teams are built to play in the Southland Tip-Off Tournament, and others are built to play in regular season, organized basketball games with days off in between. And so the Privateers have volunteered to be the catalyst with a 3-0 start, all games at home, but they did beat Nichols and Sela. So those are 2 really good wins. Corpus Christi seems to be the other team that's played really well, especially in the non-conference. Very surprising, stunning home loss to Houston Baptist.
Yeah, what happened on I still can't get over what happened. Houston Baptist was the team that finished in 8th place, went 0-3 in that tip-off tournament.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I don't know.
They have 2 D1 wins, and they're both conference games outside of the D1, outside of the in-season conference tournament.
My best guess is rivalry game, but I don't know. I don't even know if it is a rivalry game.
That big Corpus Christi Houston rivalry.
It's still
what
a good
this is turned
3 hour
into.
drive.
Good
Yeah.
God, it's empty venue. It's small venues that are empty. This league. Oh, why isn't it better?
And I'll tell you, New Orleans at Houston Baptist. I expect Houston Baptist to win that game. Why not?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Houston Baptist they're going to get hot now.
They just might. I don't know. I think it'll be a fun conference tournament.
Should. Yeah.
That's playing for a chance to go to Dayton and potentially win a game in that
Yeah,
16 versus 16 game. But that may
that's
be all we'll
true.
talk about with the Southland.
Yeah.
Um, but David, the SWAC, which is normally the conference that we're discussing the way we just discussed the Southland, may probably a step above that league at the moment.
I think so. And at least in terms of excitement, you've got the top 4 teams separated by just one game and a few surprising teams up there. How about Grambling all the way up there? FAMU, I mean, I know everybody kind of struggled at a conference. I wasn't expecting much from them, but they've really stepped up. Southern was the team I liked the most, and they're the team that's in first place, and they're the team that I still like the most. But the team I liked the second most, Texas Southern, kind of falling down a little bit here.
Yeah, but I think Rocco, the team that you just mentioned a little bit earlier, this FAMU team had the great week, beats Alcorn State and beats Jackson State, who at least heading into the season I thought might be able to contend after they actually went undefeated in the regular season last year in the SWAC. How about those Rattlers?
Rattler's playing well. MJ Randolph might be in line, at least on KenPom's site. They have him in line as the best player in the SWAC this year. He, three of the last 5 wins, he's been the MVP. He's put up over 20 in 4 of the last 5. He's got a couple 30-point games this year. So nice for the Rattlers to have a guy they can really count on to get big buckets down the stretch. A lot of these SWAC games are really tight, and they come down to the last couple minutes. So it's amazing to see how much parity there is, because I got used to all those years where it was, at least the last few, Prairie View and Texas Southern, and then everybody else. And when they paired up with anybody, it was almost a guaranteed win. Now it's not like that now. These games are going all sorts of directions. Everybody's got at least one loss. Everybody's got at least one win, and it's a real battle in this league now.
And only 8 teams make this conference tournament, so there will be
Yeah,
battles to even qualify to get to the trip to Birmingham there for the tournament. FAMU, a pair of road games at the Alabama schools this week, while Texas Southern at Prairie View has been the premier matchup,
Yeah.
regular season matchup for the last few years. It's kind of a middle of the standings mad game but it is coming up this week, I guess.
it'll be a good one. They get after each other, so
Yeah, I think that actually will be a good game. If you're looking for a game to watch in the SWAC this weekend, I'd watch that Texas Southern Prairie View game. Another team, Rocco, also worth watching is the South Dakota State
Yeah.
team. Now
And
8-0, looking very impressive.
yeah, I mean they're built to destroy teams. Look at their adjusted offense. They're 9th in the nation. Again, very hard to do with the type of schedule that South Dakota State plays in their conference. And the Summit League as a whole, a lot of dynamic offenses. South Dakota State, I think they're a team where, you look at guys like Baylor Shireman and Noah Friedel. I mean, they just are built to dominate teams here. So I feel like South Dakota themselves are getting quite a bit better. They've won
the
5.
Yotes or South Dakota State?
The Yotes.
Okay.
If you're looking for a contender kind of coming up on the horizon here, 5 in a row for the Yotes, and a very impressive win at Western Illinois on Monday night. And when they play each other, they'll get after each other. The first time was an embarrassment, South Dakota State by 19, but they'll get each other again in a couple Saturdays.
I was also going to point out the Bison though, North Dakota State.
Oh yeah,
I was impressed with going to Oral Roberts and finding a way to win that game over
big
the
win.
weekend.
Yeah.
Then took care of St. Thomas as well the other night. So
And I think Dave Richmond might be the best X's and O's coach in this league, just historically. Yeah.
There's just good basketball in this league. I mean, I know we watch a lot of under the radar conferences, and there's some that it's just, the Big Sky can kind of be like that too, but just good teams, fun league to watch, good rivalries. The Dakotas, it's just a fun league.
Kansas City versus Spurgeon College. That's one of my
Yeah,
favorite
Kansas City versus Spurgeon. I mean, that was just a barn burner. Where did they dig that team up? Good grief.
Here's the
Denver's a lot improved too under Jeff.
Denver,
Yeah.
The fact that Denver's beating anybody constitutes an improvement.
Yeah.
South Dakota State hosting North Dakota and North Dakota State. Big game Saturday. I'd circle that
Yeah.
one. Then the trip to North Dakota on Monday to follow up. I would not be circling that one. That should be a blowout.
Yeah.
Other than it is that Thursday, Saturday, Monday, 3 games in 5 days type of situation going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got to ask you about this next conference, Rocco, because every single one of these podcasts, I look at this conference. I don't know what to do. I'm still sitting here staring at the Sun Belt and looking at 12 teams that I believe could all win this conference.
Yeah, it's crazy that Georgia State's the team 0-4. Like, would have never expected that. I think they had they had the most talent on paper coming into the year. They could easily still win it. You know, you look at their losses: a 1-point loss, an overtime loss, a couple other narrow single-digit losses. It's wild. Arkansas State's the team that gets to carry the flag for this week. Probably be somebody else next week, but Norchad Omie, you know, he's technically a freshman. He's actually a sophomore. He played last year, but he's won, I think, the Sun Belt Player of the Week award 4 weeks in a row. He's just a monster in the middle. Really tough matchup, and the Red Wolves are playing well, so I'll give them a shout out. Big game at Appalachian State tomorrow.
Yeah, and
who's 6-2, by the way.
it's just every time somebody moves to the top of these standings here, it seems that they have an 0-2 week. And I think it's been happening
Like
for
Arlen
like that
seasons
last year. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just these tough road trips. You get the sweep at home, then you go on the road and get swept.
Arkansas State, at App State, at Coastal Carolina. I could see that an 0-2 trip
Trouble.
here. Absolutely.
It's trouble. It's trouble.
Troy, another team we like. They've got South Alabama twice back to back.
Yeah, I do like this Troy team. And I think that they got what it takes to get up to first place and then go 0-2.
And if you happen to be in Troy on Saturday for their home game against South Alabama, they are doing a special promotion where they're giving out donut bacon cheeseburgers. So you can go try one of those.
Excuse me, I'm on my way.
Bacon cheeseburger.
Check it out. It's on the Troy Athletics website. It's all advertised. It looks unreal.
Who came up with that?
Let's move on to the WAC here. I want to make a quick note about the standings because I mentioned it earlier in the WAC here. These are not the same standings that you will see if you go to the WAC website. The reason is that there was a couple forfeits in the WAC this year. The WAC is not the WAC's decision. What they're doing is they're not going to count the forfeits, both of which involved Lamar having a couple games canceled that were forfeits. They're not going to count them in the conference standings. However, they will count them when figuring out the seeding for the conference tournament. Well,
so they count them in the conference.
I don't understand the point of counting of that at all. And so I've decided for our purposes, they're going to be on here.
For the title, I guess, right?
So to the extent if you have if they do impact the regular season title, those 2 forfeits, they will not do it. But for conference tournament seeding purposes, so these are the standings for conference tournament seeding purposes. What you're seeing on the screen. Long story short, but or a short story long maybe. Rocco, are you with me on the Seattle bandwagon?
Yeah, why not? It's so fun. How could I not be a part of that? I mean, it's awesome. No, and the most amazing part about it is, Coach Hayford at the start of the year ends up getting fired right before the season started.
Yeah.
And a very serious matter. I mean, he used some poor language on some kids, and he's gone. So Chris Victor is an interim coach, and it's been incredible. Comes in pretty solid non-conference, but didn't expect much. They lost to VMI. They didn't beat UW. So didn't expect this, but man, beating Utah Valley at home, the sweep last weekend really pushed them over the top with the Abilene Christian and Tarleton. That's a really tough road trip. And the game tonight, I mean, is big. They only get 6 games this year at Climate Pledge Arena, which is the home of the NHL's Kraken. Tonight's game is in the NHL arena. So I think, they're probably only going to get 5,000 or so, but it'll be a cool moment for them.
Yeah, that's a good Stephen F. Austin later on tonight. But
Rocco, I have to ask this: best D1 team in the city of Seattle? Who is it?
Well, Washington beat them, so I can't
Oh yeah.
just hand Seattle U that. But it's about one of the only things Washington's done well this year.
But Griggs, I mean, the two upsets last week with New Mexico State and Grand Canyon both losing to
Yeah.
Stephen F. Austin and Sam Houston. Then they switched opponents. The Lopes lose again to Sam Houston, so awful week for the Lopes. New
Awful.
Mexico
Yeah.
State's still there. Suddenly got Sam Houston though at 7-1 in the conference out of nowhere, kind of.
Yeah, it feels like it was kind of out of nowhere. I mean, they weren't really anybody that we were tracking. In fact, like a week or so ago, it just looked like New Mexico State was just going to break away from the pack, and it was them and also Rams. But look, here comes Sam Houston kind of out of nowhere. And you all already talked about Seattle, 15-4 overall on the year, unbeaten in league play and it hasn't been like that it was just a schedule that was entirely backloaded. They've lifted some weight to get up there.
Absolutely. So that's where we are. I still think at the end of the day, though, New Mexico State is the best team in this conference.
They are. God, yeah. I mean,
and they are even if somehow they don't even get the 1 seed this conference tournament, they're going to be the team to beat in this conference tournament.
For sure. Yeah.
As far as the upcoming schedule this week, for all these 3 or 4 teams we'll look at the top here, we already mentioned that Seattle's hosting SFA later on tonight after we record this, but probably before any of you watch this. But Sam Houston at Seattle then coming up on Saturday, the big one, and the huge rivalry here of the Lopes and the Aggies on Saturday as well. This has turned into a great rivalry.
Yeah, it has, and you kind of like. I would like to think that this would keep going, but it probably won't after New Mexico State bolts for Conference USA.
Yeah. Which puts even more on the line this year.
Yeah.
Let's check in a couple other conferences. Why not? The Front Range Conference.
Oh yeah,
Colorado State's still in first place here at 3-0. Northern Colorado sitting in 0-1. Denver 0-2. Despite the Pioneers getting better, they did not get any Front Range game wins at least so far this year. Don't know if they're going to really have a shot at getting one. I don't think there's anything on the schedule for this week.
No, we got Friday. We got Wyoming Air Force.
Oh, Wyoming Air Force. We do have a conference game.
Yeah, we got Colorado State, Wyoming Monday. Like, I mean, we've got
big games. The Front Range could be decided Monday night between Colorado State and Wyoming potentially. And the Beehive Conference, fresh off of that big win by Weber State over Southern Utah, we now have a 2-way tie there. I guess the 3-way tie. They're all 500 in conference, but everyone's still chasing BYU and Utah Valley in this conference.
Yeah.
I guess we have an interesting tiebreaker situation. Does BYU win for more conference wins, or does Utah Valley win for the head-to-head victory?
I don't know. I have not seen the Beehive bylaws.
Oh no, it's at stake here. It's the old ochre bucket.
What an awesomely named trophy that is.
Let's go to our top 10 list. We've got a bunch of honorable mentions. First of all, these are the top 10 under the radar programs. Ohio U falling out of the top 10, just getting an honorable mention this week, along with Missouri State, Vermont, New Mexico State, Seattle getting in there.
Seattle getting a mention. Wow.
And Wagner getting a mention. So congrats to Seattle, actually showing up, I think, for the first time ever on a top 10, at least honorable mention.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
Way to go, Red Hawks.
Yeah. Oakland coming in number 10, just barely hanging in. Another team with a bad loss this past week.
Yeah.
Chattanooga still in the top 10, trying to rebound for the Western Carolina loss. Number 8, we've got Toledo.
Toledo with a big win. Yeah.
Number 7, we got South Dakota State. We just discussed them a few minutes ago.
Yeah, man, they're good.
At 6, we got Belmont. Still in there.
Yeah, still pretty high after 2 losses where they just, quite frankly, didn't look that good.
At number 5, we've got North Texas. Moving up the charts here out of Conference USA. UAB right ahead of them though at number 4. Louisiana Tech not on the list
UAB
this week.
Team, yeah.
Number 3, we got Iona.
Yeah, way up there. And then
number 2, Murray State. And there's probably no real surprise here, but we'll do the drum roll anyhow. Loyola Chicago, number 1.
Yeah.
Number 1 top 10 team. That's our list. Let's go to final thoughts. Rocco.
Okay, so final thoughts. Like I voted Murray State number 1, but that's okay. Can't go wrong either way. They're both elite, great teams. I would just say in general, when you look at the under the radar picture, there is a lot. I think right now there's probably more teams that I think would be inside the bubble than usual. When you talk about Iona, Loyola Chicago, Murray State, and possibly UAB, those would be the four I would have right this moment. And then you're still looking at a Belmont team, a New Mexico State team, and a North Texas team that are not out of it. So that's a nice healthy amount. Barring some crazy scenarios, there could be a few others. We talked about Ohio and potentially Oakland, but probably looking at those seven the rest of the way. It would be great to see a situation where if Loyola Chicago or even Murray State doesn't have to win their tournament, we can get a couple extra bids out of the under the radar ranks. That's always the goal for me. It's always hard to watch an 8-9 game between two 500 power conference teams. If we can replace those teams with a couple of these teams that will have 25 or so wins, that'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, it'd be real nice to be in a situation too where you're heading into a conference championship game, really saying that if whoever loses this game should be in anyhow. Maybe Ohio Valley's the only conference where that could possibly happen.
Mhm.
I'm not as sold on North Texas's resume in Conference USA that if they're playing
Yeah, the
UAB in the
two home
championship
losses.
game that but hey, North Texas doesn't lose again until they lose UAB in the championship game. I'll talk. Uh Griggs, you want to finish us out?
Okay, kind of a loaded final thought, and I figured, what week would I pull this one out? And I guess this is the week we're starting to hear rumblings, and sometimes it's even getting louder and louder than just a rumbling from ads, a few commissioners, certainly some coaches, although they don't really matter from an administrative standpoint, about how Division One might restructure itself, probably will restructure itself, and as far as what that means to men's and women's basketball, particularly under the radar, how they might restructure the championships. There was a quote that was like nails on a chalkboard. Our colleague Lee Del Vecchio shared it. I think we tweeted it out. It basically said, and this was not an isolated incident. Many feel this way. Why do we give automatic bids to all 32 conferences? There's at least 12 or 13 of them that don't belong in there when we can get more power conference teams in there. And it really drives me up the wall because they've pontificated over and over again how this is amateur athletics and the values of it and how that is what makes it popular. Well, it isn't the indentured servitude piece of it that makes this popular. It is the idea that it's open to everyone, regardless of what conference you're in. And when I look at the Olympics, to me, that's like saying, well, we shouldn't take athletes from all the countries. That way we can make room for more athletes for bigger countries. That is completely beyond what the point of it is. And I think it would really ruin the popularity, and the pushback would be enormous. I know the three of us wouldn't like it. I don't think anybody at Hoops HD would like it. I know they wouldn't. And I just don't think they realized what they were doing, how that would crash what truly is, in my opinion, the most special sporting event that takes place in this country just completely wreck it into a mountain. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen. Exactly. I guess on that note, though, I do want to thank everyone for joining us. We'll be back again. I think tomorrow night we're doing a bracket rundown show. Lots of podcasts next week. But on behalf of David Griggs over there, he just disappeared.
I'm right here.
Good
I'm right here.
riddance. Rocco Millie, you can check him out as well at bracketeer.org. I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you again real soon.